Cold metal pressed against Li Bin's face as consciousness slowly returned. His eyes opened to harsh white light that made his head pound. The room was perfectly clean and empty except for the metal table he was lying on. Everything hurt. His body felt wrong, like pieces of himself were missing. He tried to remember how he got here. The memories came in broken pieces. There was a ship, his ship, the soul's pride. He was the captain. They were exploring beyond the outer planets, looking for new worlds. Then something went wrong. "You are awake," a voice said from somewhere above him. Li Bin tried to sit up but found his arms and legs were held down by invisible force fields. The voice belonged to something that looked almost human but wasn't quite right. Its skin was pale gray and its eyes were too large. It wore a white robe that seemed to glow. "What happened to my crew?" Li Bin's voice came out rough and weak. "Your crew is dead, your ship is destroyed, you are the only one left," the being said without any emotion. "I am Overseer Keth. You will answer my questions." Li Bin's heart felt like it stopped. 200 people had been on that ship. Good people. His friends. "You're lying." "We do not lie. We simply state facts. Your species sent you into our territory without permission. This was a mistake that cost many lives." "Our territory? We didn't know anyone lived out here, we were just exploring." Overseer Keth moved closer. Its large eyes seemed to look right through Li Bin. "Your ignorance is not an excuse. Humans are new to space travel. You do not understand the rules. The galaxy has been peaceful for 10,000 years under hegemony control. Species like yours only bring chaos." Li Bin struggled against the force fields, but they held him tight. "What do you want from me?" "You will be an example. Other humans will learn what happens when they venture too far from their small world. But first, we must fix you." "Fix me? There's nothing wrong with me." Overseer Keth touched something on the wall. A panel slid open and machines began to move toward the table. They looked like metal spiders with glowing eyes and sharp tools. "Your mind is filled with dangerous thoughts. Pride, independence, the belief that your species matters. These thoughts make you unstable. We will remove them. You will be better afterward." Fear shot through Li Bin like ice water. "You can't change who I am. We have done this many times with many species. It is a simple process. When we are finished, you will be peaceful. You will understand your place in the galaxy. You will serve without question." The machines positioned themselves around Li Bin's head. He could hear them humming with power. "Wait, I have a family back on Earth. A sister named Park Nari. She's waiting for me to come home. Family connections are among the first things we remove. They make subjects difficult to control." Li Bin felt something cold touch his forehead. The world began to spin. "Please, I'll do whatever you want, just don't take my memories. You will do what we want regardless. This is simply more efficient." Pain exploded through Li Bin's skull. It felt like his brain was being torn apart and put back together wrong. Images flashed through his mind. His sister's smile, his first day as captain, the excitement of leaving Earth's solar system, the pride in his crew's eyes as they discovered new things. Then the images began to fade. One by one, they were pulled away from him. He tried to hold on to them, but they slipped through his mental fingers like water. The pain was unbearable, but worse was the emptiness that followed. "Stop," he whispered, but his voice was getting weaker. "Your name was Li Bin," Overseer Keth said as the machines worked. "That name is gone now. You are Specimen 7749. You will answer to that designation only." Li Bin wanted to scream that he was still himself, that they couldn't take away who he was, but the words wouldn't come. Something important was disappearing from his mind, something that made him human. Hours passed, or maybe days. Time had no meaning in the White Room. The machines worked, without stopping. Each time Li Bin thought the process was over, they would start again. Overseer Keth watched everything with those cold, large eyes. "Your species believes it is special," the alien said during one of the brief breaks. "You think you are unique in the galaxy. This is incorrect. We have encountered thousands of species. All of them believed they were special. All of them were wrong. Li Bin could barely think anymore. His memories were like a puzzle with most of the pieces missing. He remembered Earth was his home world but couldn't picture what it looked like. He knew he had been a captain but couldn't remember his ship's name. The hegemony maintains order, Overseer Keth continued. We prevent wars. We stop chaos. Species that cannot be trusted to govern themselves are given guidance. This guidance has brought peace to the galaxy. What kind of peace? Li Bin managed to ask. Speaking was getting harder. Perfect peace. No wars, no conflicts, no unnecessary suffering. Every species knows its place and accepts it gladly. That's not peace, that's slavery. Overseer Keth's expression didn't change. You will understand differently when the process is complete. But something deep inside Li Bin's mind refused to break. Even as his memories were stripped away, even as his identity was torn apart, a small spark remained hidden. It was the memory of a promise. He had promised someone he would come home. He couldn't remember who or why, but the promise felt more important than his own life. The machines finally stopped. Li Bin lay still on the table, breathing heavily. Most of his mind felt empty and quiet. He knew his name had been Li Bin, but that name felt like it belonged to someone else now. He was Specimen 7749. That was who he was supposed to be. The process is complete, Overseer Keth announced. You will be transferred to the labor facility. You will work until you are no longer useful. Then you will be disposed of efficiently. As guards came to take him away, Li Bin felt the small hidden spark in his mind pulse once. Somewhere someone was still waiting for him to keep his promise. He didn't know who or what that promise was, but it was all he had left of himself. He would not let them take that too. The prison world was a place of endless gray. Gray buildings, gray sky, gray uniforms for all the workers. Specimen 7749 had been here for 3 months now, though time felt meaningless in this place. Every day was the same. Wake up, work in the mines, eat tasteless food, sleep on a hard bed. Repeat. The other prisoners moved like ghosts. Most of them had been here much longer than he had. Their eyes were empty, their movements slow and mechanical. They had forgotten who they used to be. The hegemony's mind treatment had worked perfectly on them. But something was different about 7749. The spark hidden deep in his mind kept him awake at night. It whispered that this wasn't right, that he didn't belong here. Sometimes he would catch himself staring at the stars through the small window in his cell, feeling like he should be among them instead of trapped on this dead world. The work was hard and dangerous. The prisoners dug for crystals that powered hegemony ships. The tunnels were dark and hot. Many workers got sick from breathing the dust. When they became too weak to work, they simply disappeared. No one talked about where they went. You work differently than the others, a voice said one day while 7749 was taking a break. He looked up to see another prisoner watching him. This one was smaller than most, with blue skin and 4 arms. Unlike the other prisoners, her eyes weren't empty. They were sharp and intelligent. I work the same as everyone else, 7749 said carefully. He had learned not to stand out. No, you don't. You think while you work. You solve problems. Yesterday you figured out how to move those heavy rocks when the machine broke. The others just stood there waiting for orders. 49 didn't know what to say. The blue-skinned alien sat down next to him. My name is Yuki, she said quietly. I know we're not supposed to use names here, but I remember mine. Do you remember yours? I'm Specimen 7749, that's what they call you. But what did your people call you? Something stirred in 7749's mind. A memory that felt important, but was too damaged to understand. I think it started with L. Lee something. Yuki nodded. Holding on to pieces is important, even small pieces. I've been here for 2 years. I've seen hundreds of prisoners come and go. Most of them forget everything within weeks. But you're different. Different how? You're human, aren't you? 7749 felt surprised. He hadn't thought about what species he was. How did you know? Humans are rare out here. Most species give up when the hegemony breaks their minds, but humans are stubborn. Even when you can't remember who you are, you keep fighting. Over the following weeks, Yuki began talking to 7749 during their brief rest periods. She told him things the hegemony didn't want prisoners to know. She explained that there were many species in the galaxy, and not all of them supported the hegemony's rule. My people, the Kaelin, fought back when the hegemony came to our worlds, Yuki explained one day, while they worked side by side. We couldn't win, but we made it expensive for them. Now they watch us carefully, but some of us still resist. Resist how? Small ways. We remember things. We help each other. We keep hope alive. Hope is the most dangerous thing to the hegemony because it spreads. 49 found himself looking forward to these conversations. Yuki taught him about the galaxy beyond this prison world. She told him about beautiful planets with purple oceans and floating cities. She described species that could change their shape at will, and others that communicated through music. The hegemony says they brought peace to the galaxy, Yuki said. But what kind of peace is it when everyone is afraid to think for themselves? What kind of peace requires prison worlds and mind control? Why are you telling me this? 7749 asked. Because you're going to remember who you are someday, and when you do, you'll need to know the truth about this place. The hidden spark in 7749's mind grew stronger with each conversation. Sometimes he would dream of a place with blue skies and white clouds, a world where people moved freely and spoke their minds without fear. He didn't know if it was a real memory or just wishful thinking. One night, while lying in his cell, 7749 heard quiet movement in the corridor. He pressed his face to the small window in his door and saw Yuki moving, carefully from cell to cell. She was leaving small objects under each door. When she reached his cell, she slipped something through the gap. It was a small piece of crystal, no bigger than his thumb. But this crystal was different from the ones they mined. This one glowed with soft, warm light. The next day, 7749 found a way to ask Yuki about the crystal without being overheard. "It's from my home world," she whispered. "These crystals store memories. My grandmother gave it to me before the hegemony took me. It holds the memory of our family singing together on the night before I left." "Why did you give it to me?" "Because you need to remember that beautiful things still exist. The hegemony wants us to believe that their gray world is all there is. But it's not. There's still beauty in the galaxy. There's still hope." That night, 7749 held the crystal close to his chest. Its warm light seemed to reach the hidden spark in his mind. For the first time since waking up in the White Room, he felt something other than emptiness. He felt hope. As the weeks passed, 7749 began to notice other things, small signs that some prisoners weren't completely broken. A shared look here, a helping hand there. The resistance Yuki spoke of was real, even in this terrible place. He also began to understand something important. The hegemony was afraid. They wouldn't work so hard to break people's minds if they weren't afraid of what those minds could do. They wouldn't need prison worlds if their control was as perfect as they claimed. The spark in 7749's mind grew brighter. Soon, he thought, he would remember who he really was. And when that happened, the hegemony would learn something they clearly didn't understand about humans. They would learn that hope, once kindled, was almost impossible to destroy. The interrogation room was the same white chamber where 7749's memories had been stolen months ago. Overseer Keth stood waiting, just as cold and emotionless as before. 2 guards had dragged 7749 here without explanation, though he suspected Yuki's resistance activities had been discovered. "Specimen 7749, Overseer Keith said. "You have been associating with problematic elements in the facility. I work. I follow orders. I cause no trouble. Yet you spend time with Specimen 3891. This individual has a history of resistance activities. You will tell me what she has said to you." 49 kept his face blank. "She talks about work, nothing else." Overseer Keth moved closer. Those large, alien eyes studying 7749's face. I think you are lying. The mental conditioning you received should make lying impossible. Perhaps the process was incomplete. Fear shot through 7749, but he tried not to show it. I tell the truth. We shall see. The machine spiders descended from the ceiling again, just as they had during his first time in this room. 7749's body tensed as they positioned themselves around his head. The humming sound they made brought back terrible memories of pain and loss. This time we will dig deeper, Overseer Keth explained. We will remove every trace of independent thought. When we are finished, you will be truly peaceful. The first pulse of energy hit 7749's brain like lightning. He screamed as pain exploded through his skull. But something was different this time. Instead of his memories being pulled away, they began coming back. He saw flashes of his life before this place. A woman with kind eyes who looked like him. His sister, Park Nari. The memory was so clear and strong that it cut through the pain like a sword. Interesting, Overseer Keth observed. Your brain patterns are not responding normally. Increase the power. More energy poured into 7749's mind, but instead of breaking him, it was breaking the walls that had been built around his memories. Image after image came flooding back. The bridge of his ship, the Soul's Pride. His crew working together with smiles on their faces. The excitement of discovering new stars. My name is Li Bin, he gasped between waves of pain. Overseer Keth's eyes widened slightly. Impossible. The conditioning cannot be reversed. I'm Captain Li Bin of the Soul's Pride, Li Bin said, his voice growing stronger. Navigation Officer Kim Dae. Engineer Choi Minho. Medical Officer Han Sora. I remember them all. More memories returned. The attack on his ship. Watching his crew die while trying to protect Earth's first deep space mission. The promise he had, made to his sister before leaving home. He had sworn to return safely and tell her about the wonders they found among the stars. You killed them, Li Bin said, looking directly at Overseer Keth. 200 good people who never hurt anyone. They were trespassers in hegemony space. Their deaths were justified. Rage built inside Li Bin like a fire. But this wasn't the helpless anger of a broken prisoner. This was the controlled fury of a trained military officer who had just remembered his purpose. Increase power to maximum, Overseer Keth ordered. The machines poured everything they had into Li Bin's brain. The pain was beyond description, but with each wave of agony, more memories returned. His tactical training, his knowledge of ship systems, his understanding of command structure and battlefield strategy. And something else came back too. The reason why humans had been chosen for deep space exploration. They were adaptable. They could survive in situations that would break other species. They could turn disadvantages into advantages. You made a mistake, Li Bin said through gritted teeth. What mistake? You kept me alive. You should have killed me with my crew. Li Bin's restraint sparked and failed as energy from the machines overloaded the systems. He rolled off the table and grabbed one of the machine spiders before it could retreat. With strength he didn't know he still had, he crushed it in his hands. Guards, Overseer Keth shouted. The two alien guards rushed into the room, but Li Bin was ready for them. Months of hard labor had kept his body strong, and his returned memories included years of combat training. He moved like the soldier he had been, fast and precise. The first guard went down when Li Bin threw the broken machine at its head. The second guard tried to use some kind of energy weapon, but Li Bin was already inside its reach. A quick strike to what looked like the alien's throat, and it collapsed. Overseer Keth backed against the wall. You cannot escape. There are thousands of guards on this facility. I'm not trying to escape, Li Bin said, picking up one of the fallen weapons. I'm going to free every prisoner in this place. Then I'm going to steal a ship and get back to Earth to warn them about you. Impossible. You are one being against the entire hegemony. Li Bin checked the weapon and found it was some kind of plasma rifle. The design was different from human weapons, but the basic principles were the same. Point and shoot. You're right. I'm just one human. But you know what scares you most about humans? We don't stay just one for very long. We find others. We work together. We inspire people to be better than they thought they could be. Alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Li Bin had maybe minutes before the entire prison would be flooded with guards. Yuki told me something important, he continued, keeping the weapon trained on Overseer Keth. She said hope spreads. Well, guess what? I'm about to spread some hope. Li Bin grabbed the alien's communication device from its belt. He figured out how to activate it and set it to broadcast on all frequencies throughout the prison. This is Captain Li Bin of Earth, he announced. I remember who I am. I remember why I'm here. And I remember that we don't have to accept this. To every prisoner listening to this, your names matter. Your memories matter. You matter. It's time to take back what's yours. He could hear sounds of confusion and movement coming from throughout the facility. Some prisoners would be too broken to respond, but others, like Yuki, had been waiting for exactly this moment. You have started something you cannot finish, Overseer Keth said. Li Bin smiled, and for the first time since waking up in this nightmare, he felt like himself again. You're wrong about that, too. Humans are very good at finishing things, especially when we're fighting for something that matters. He locked the alien in the interrogation room and headed for the door. He had a promise to keep to his sister, and an entire galaxy to warn about the hegemony's true nature. The real fight was just beginning. The stolen hegemony ship shuddered as another plasma blast hit its shields. Captain Li Bin gripped the pilot's chair and watched the tactical display show impossible odds. 37 enemy ships surrounded his small fleet of 5 rescued vessels. Each enemy ship was 3 times larger than anything in his makeshift armada. Captain, our shields are down to 20%, reported Yuki from the weapons station. She had turned out to be an excellent gunner once Li Bin taught her human combat tactics. How long until we reach Earth's communication range? Li Bin asked. 4 minutes, answered Jin Wu, a human prisoner they had found in the deep cells. He had been captured 6 months before Li Bin and had almost given up hope of rescue. 4 minutes. Li Bin looked around the bridge at the mix of species who had joined their desperate escape. Humans, Kalan, and 3 other alien races that had been ground down by hegemony oppression. Only 43 beings total against the might of a galactic empire. The prison break had succeeded beyond his wildest hopes. Word of his broadcast had spread through the facility like wildfire. Prisoners who had forgotten their own names suddenly remembered why they had fought in the first place. The uprising had freed over 200 beings and destroyed the mind control equipment forever. But getting off the prison world had been the easy part. The hegemony fleet had been waiting for them at the edge of Earth's solar system. They had orders to stop any message from reaching humanity. Sir, incoming transmission from the hegemony flagship, reported Su Min, another rescued human who was handling communications. Put it through. The face that appeared on the screen was not Overseer Keth, but something even more alien and intimidating. This being was twice the size of the others, with armor that seemed to be grown rather than worn. I am Admiral Vex of the Hegemony Warfleet. You will surrender immediately or be destroyed. This is Captain Li Bin of Earth. We're not surrendering. Captain, Li Bin, yes, we know of you. The human who thinks he can change the galaxy. You are responsible for the deaths of many hegemony citizens during your escape. They weren't citizens. They were prison guards keeping innocent people locked up. Your perspective is flawed. The beings you freed were dangerous elements that threatened galactic peace. They will be recaptured and properly conditioned. Li Bin felt anger rising in his chest but kept his voice steady. The only thing dangerous about them was that they remembered who they were. That's what you're really afraid of, isn't it? That people might remember they don't have to live under your control. Enough. You have 30 seconds to surrender before we open fire. The connection ended. Li Bin turned to face his mixed crew of former prisoners. They all looked at him with expressions ranging from fear to determination. I won't lie to you, Li Bin said. We probably won't survive this fight. But we're not fighting for ourselves anymore. We're fighting for every person on Earth who doesn't know what's coming. We're fighting for the right of free beings everywhere to make their own choices. What are your orders, Captain? Yuki asked. Li Bin looked at the tactical display again. The enemy ships were moving into attack formation, but there was still a chance, however small, to get their message through. All ships, attack pattern Delta. We're going to punch a hole through their line and get close enough to Earth to transmit our data. Jinwoo, prepare the intelligence package for broadcast. Already ready, sir. Everything we learned about hegemony weaknesses, their ship designs, their tactics. Earth will know how to fight them. Su Min, record a message for transmission with the data. Recording now, Captain. Li Bin looked directly into the camera. This is Captain Li Bin of the Soul's Pride, broadcasting to Earth Defense Command. The hegemony is not a peaceful alliance. They are conquerors who break the minds of entire species. They're coming for Earth next, but you can stop them. The data we're sending will show you how. Tell my sister Park Nari that I kept my promise. I'm coming home. The first wave of enemy fire lit up space around them. Li Bin's ship rolled and dove, trying to avoid the worst of it. 2 of his escort ships weren't fast enough. They exploded in brilliant flashes that temporarily blinded the sensors. Return fire. All weapons, Li Bin shouted. Their stolen hegemony weapons were powerful, but they were outnumbered 10-1. Still, they fought like their lives depended on it. Because they did. Jinwoo managed to disable one enemy ship with a lucky shot to its reactor. Yuki's accurate firing took out the weapons on another, but for every small victory the enemy closed in tighter. Hull breach on deck 3, someone reported. Shields are gone. We've lost 2 more escort ships. Li Bin's ship was falling apart around him, but they were close. So close to Earth's communication satellites. Now, Su Min, transmit everything. Transmitting. On all frequencies, the data package shot toward Earth at light speed. Everything the hegemony had tried to hide. Their weaknesses, their fear of united resistance, their plans for conquering humanity. Confirmed. Earth Defense Command is acknowledging receipt. Su Min shouted with joy. A massive explosion rocked the ship as the enemy flagship scored a direct hit. Li Bin was thrown from his chair as systems failed all around them. Captain, we're breaking up, Yuki called out. Li Bin pulled himself up and looked at the screen showing Earth growing larger ahead of them. They had made it. The message was sent. Abandon ship. All hands to escape pods. What about you, sir? Jinwoo asked. Someone needs to keep us on course. Make sure we crash somewhere Earth's forces can recover the ship's computer. They'll need every bit of intelligence we gathered. I'm staying too, Yuki announced. So am I, said Su Min. One by one, his crew refused to leave. They had all been prisoners together. They would face the end together. Li Bin felt a strange peace settle over him. He had kept his promise to his sister. Earth would be ready for what was coming. Humanity would not be surprised and overwhelmed like his crew had been. The ship broke through Earth's atmosphere, burning like a meteor. In the distance, Li Bin could see the lights of cities where people lived free and unafraid. Soon those people would have to fight for that freedom, but they would know how. It's been an honor serving with all of you, Li Bin said as the ground rushed up to meet them. The last thing he saw before the crash was a message flashing on the communication screen. It was from Earth Defense Command, and it was addressed to him personally. Message received and understood, Captain. Welcome home. Your sister is waiting. Park Nari stood at her brother's bedside in the military hospital on Luna Base. Li Bin was alive, but barely. The crash had broken most of his bones and damaged his organs beyond repair. The doctors said he had maybe hours left. The data you brought saved us, she whispered, holding his hand. Earth Defense Command is already building new ships based on hegemony weaknesses you discovered. We're forming alliances with the free species you told us about. Li Bin's eyes opened slowly. Even after everything he had been through, his smile was the same one she remembered from when they were children. Did I keep my promise? He asked weakly. You kept it. You came home and told me about the wonders among the stars, even the terrible ones we need to know about. Good. I was worried I might forget again. Nari squeezed his hand tighter. The whole galaxy is going to remember you, brother. What you did is spreading to every free world out there. Over the next few days, as Li Bin slipped away, reports came in from across the galaxy. The prison break he had led was inspiring uprisings on other hegemony worlds. Species that had been broken and enslaved for generations were suddenly remembering who they used to be. The hegemony was trying to suppress the news, but their own communication networks were working against them. The story of the human who couldn't be broken was reaching every corner of their empire. More importantly, the technical data Li Bin had gathered was revolutionizing Earth's defenses. Human engineers worked around the clock to build weapons that could fight hegemony ships on equal terms. The enemy had counted on surprise and overwhelming force. Now they would face a prepared and united resistance. 3 weeks after the crash, Park Nari received a visit from Admiral Chen, the head of Earth Defense Command. "Your brother's sacrifice has given us the greatest gift possible," the Admiral said. "Time to prepare. The hegemony fleet won't reach Earth for another 6 months. By then, we'll be ready for them." "What about the other species? The ones my brother freed?" "We're in contact with resistance groups on 12 different worlds. They're organizing a coordinated rebellion for when the hegemony moves against Earth. Your brother didn't just save humanity. He started a galactic war for freedom." Park Nari felt proud and sad at the same time. Li Bin had always been the type to help others, even when it cost him everything. Months passed. Earth's defenses grew stronger every day. New ships launched, weekly crewed by volunteers who had heard Li Bin's story. They called themselves the Liberation Fleet, and their motto was simple: remember the anomaly. The name had come from captured hegemony communications. Their leaders refused to speak Li Bin's human name, calling him only the anomaly in their reports. They meant it as an insult, a way to deny his identity even in death. But humans had a different understanding of the word. An anomaly was something that didn't fit the expected pattern, something that changed the rules. Li Bin had been exactly that, a human who broke when he was supposed to be broken, who remembered when he was supposed to forget, who inspired hope when he was supposed to spread despair. Earth's rebels took the name proudly. They painted it on their ships. They used it as a battle cry. They turned the enemy's insult into a badge of honor. When the hegemony fleet finally arrived at Earth, they found something they hadn't expected. Instead of one isolated world, they faced a coalition of 40 different species working together. Instead of primitive weapons, they encountered technology designed specifically to counter their advantages. The battle lasted 3 days. Earth's forces, outnumbered but not outmatched, fought with a determination that shocked their enemies. Every human ship that fell was replaced by 2 more from the allied species. On the 3rd day, Admiral Vex himself was captured when his flagship was disabled. During his interrogation, he made a confession that spread throughout the galaxy. "We should have killed the human called Li Bin immediately," he admitted. "We thought we could break him like all the others. We were wrong. Humans cannot be broken. They can only be made more dangerous." The hegemony's defeat at Earth triggered uprisings across their empire. World after world declared independence. Species that had been enslaved for thousands of years remembered what freedom felt like. The war continued for years, but the outcome was never in doubt after Earth's victory. The age of hegemony control was ending, replaced by something new. A galaxy where different species worked together as equals, where diversity was celebrated instead of crushed. Park Nari, now an admiral herself, stood on the bridge of the ship named in her brother's honor. The EDF Anomaly was the flagship of the Liberation Fleet, leading the final assault on the hegemony's homeworld. "All ships, this is Admiral Park," she broadcast to the mixed fleet of human and alien vessels around her. "Today we finish what?" Captain Li Bin started. "Today we prove that no force in the galaxy can destroy the will of free beings to remain free." The battle was brief. The hegemony's forces, demoralized by years of defeats, surrendered without much of a fight. Their leaders were arrested and put on trial for crimes against entire species. Years later, when historians wrote about the end of the hegemony and the birth of the Galactic Alliance, they all agreed on one thing. The turning point had been a single human who refused to let his enemies define who he was. They had tried to take his name, but Earth had given him a better one. Li Bin had become the anomaly, the one who changed everything. His story was taught in schools across 100 worlds, always ending with the same lesson. When someone tries to erase who you are, don't just resist. Become something even more than you were before. Become the anomaly that breaks their system and frees everyone else. In the end, that was the most human thing of all. Taking the worst thing that could happen and turning it into hope for everyone.